Welcome to another episode of Full Build Friday, where I try to build a character from a comic, game, or similar source using the baseline rules of Pathfinder Second Edition and the Path Builder app. I often receive requests or suggestions for builds for characters that I don't know much about, which leaves me to try to do my best. Now, I watched the first 1 or 2 seasons of RWBY back in the day, but not much of it has stuck with me. Nevertheless, some people were asking for this build, so here's my attempt at the blonde brawler Yang Xiao from RWBY. With me lacking in knowledge of this character, it's important to establish some build goals, focusing on highlights that I can find. Like all the central characters of the series, Yang is a huntress of Grimm at Beacon Academy, serving in the eponymous team of RWBY alongside her younger half-sister. Her primary weapons are the Ember's Celica, a pair of shot gauntlets that combine the features of knuckle dusters with short-range firearms that pack a serious punch. Her fighting style has some basis on boxing, focused on close-quarters combat where she supplements her heavy blows with blasts from her weapons. Furthermore, Yang is notably strong. She can send grown men flying with a punch and is able to hold open the jaws of giant beasts with a single arm. In a common practice of hunters and huntresses, she is able to shield herself with her aura, and is notably durable, often able to take more punishment than the rest of her team. She also has a semblance, which is apparently a superpower that was added as part of the series after I stopped watching it. Her semblance is Burn, which allows her to absorb the energy from impacts and then empower her blows with that force. Finally, Yang was literally disarmed during the course of the show, and eventually had her limb replaced with a mechanical prosthesis that her Ember Celica was integrated into. With a firm grasp on what makes this bombastic brawler tick, let's get into it. This build will actually represent Yang as an orc, taking the battle-ready heritage to represent her aggression, and because the intimidating glare from it will allow her to menace the animalistic Grimm, some of her most common enemies within the show. I do also somewhat like orc as a small nod to the tribe of bandits and worse that her mother hails from, though I could also see going half-orc. She uses orc ferocity to explore some of her staunch survivability, and because the ancestry feats that will follow up will help to capture other aspects of the character down the line. Her background is both obvious and literal. As Yang is a hunter of Grimm, she takes the hunter background. This will make her trained in survival, gives her survey wildlife, and makes her trained in tanning lore. This skill feat lets her figure out what's residing within the area, which I don't think matches her specifically, but feels like it could still be handy in hunting Grimm. I'd love to diversify my orc builds a bit, but today's not the day. Yang is a barbarian who will take the Fury Instinct since her burn ability isn't actually related to fire. Fury is still a little weak as instincts go, but it does come with a feat down the line that works nicely for her. Right now though, it just nets her an extra class feat, which means that she is armed with Adrenaline Rush, serving to represent her more impressive strength, and specifically calling to mind the time that she held open the jaws of a giant Grimm while firing shots down his throat, as well as Sudden Charge, simply representing her more aggressive nature and letting her hurl herself into a fight. For her skills, we're looking at Acrobatics, Athletics, Nature, and Stealth. Some of these options are mainly just about fulfilling her role as a huntress, while Acrobatics is generally useful and suits her more agile fighting style. Speaking of, while her primary focus is on strength when it comes to ability scores, Dexterity will also be important, both for this reason that I just mentioned, as well as her choice of weapon. Black Powder Knuckle Dusters are great representations of her Ember Celica, being able to switch between melee and ranged modes, but the biggest issue with them is honestly the fact that they have such low damage and the Agile trait while in Knuckle Duster mode. Agile means that she only has half her rage damage, which is already low given that she is starting with the Fury Instinct. However, they are just too perfect to pass up on as her weapons, and we'll be using them, but other ones as well, for this build. We're back to taking archetypes at 2nd level as Yang picks up the Gunslinger dedication with a Way of the Trigger brand to enhance her usage of her Ember Celica, though it will take a few levels to really get there. For now, it mostly just makes her trained in Thievery since that is her Way's associated skill. Speaking of skills, her skill feat will be Titan Wrestler. Grimm are often much bigger than humans, but Yang is still able to bully them around thanks to her considerable strength and this feat. Given her preference for hand-to-hand combat, Yang uses the Ancestral Paragon to take Iron Fists at 3rd level, making her fists lethal and adding the Shove trait to them. Going along with that, she increases her Athletics Expert with her first skill increase. 4th level grants Yang Basic Shooting, for sword and pistol, which lets her weave in the different types of attacks from her Ember Celica, or alternate between shots from it and punches from her Iron Fists. And what likely isn't a surprise, she uses Quick Jump for her skill feat, letting her swiftly leap from areas as befitting such an athletic character. With her 5th level Ancestry feat, Yang can take Bloody Blows, which adds bleed damage to any critical hit that she scores with her lethal unarmed attacks. This isn't particularly reflective of any of her abilities or features, but works nicely with this build. This time around, she'll use her increase for acrobatics to become an expert in it. Partially to fulfill having 2 feats for her archetype, Yang takes Slinger's Readiness at 6th level, which gives her a free action on her first turn, and a fight to arm herself with a combination weapon, set it to a mode, and avoid reactive strikes for that first round. She'll take Powerful Leap to get her a greater distance on her leaps, and she just generally has a focus on athletics, which makes this a nice fit for her. This build, and sometimes Yang's own impulsiveness, often puts her in the way of danger. To that end, she takes Toughness to give her some extra survivability, while applying this level skill increase to athletics, letting her become a master in it. With 2 Gunslinger feats in hand, Yang can take Sterling Dynamo Dedication at 8th level to replicate the prosthetic arm that she acquires deeper into the show. Since she already has a number of agile options, she takes the Manual Power Driver Dynamo, giving her a higher damage option that lacks the agile trait, meaning that she will finally be able to apply her full rage damage to strikes with it. Then with her skill feat, she takes Rapid Mantle, since even with her bolstering her dexterity, her athletics will likely stay higher than her reflexes. For her 9th level Ancestry feat, she'll take Undying Ferocity to upgrade her Orc Ferocity, which grants her some temporary hit points when she uses this reaction. It's a really minor thing and might not even be enough to save her, but it does add to her durability and has a chance that if the enemy rolls low, she can survive another hit. Once again, she'll increase her acrobatics, raising it to Master. Armed with Gunslinger and Sterling Dynamo, we have a hold on Yang's basic fighting style, which means that it's time to start working on her burn, opening with Come and Get Me at 10th level. This causes her to welcome blows but then leaves enemies vulnerable, which isn't exactly her burn, but it works in the sense that it makes it more likely for her to dish out critical hits. It's also only the first step. Other features will delve into this deeper as we get further into the build. Since she has a Master in Acrobatics, Kip Up feels like an obvious choice for her skill feat. This is always a great option, being a free action to stand up, though honestly being prone isn't as dangerous for her, given that Come and Get Me already leaves her off guard. Another general feat at 11th level will be spent on Fleet to increase her speed, which does enhance her sudden charge by a tiny little bit. It's just still nice. With her Acrobatics and Athletics both at Master, she starts to increase her Intimidation to Expert. 12th level means that Yang can use Advanced Shooting to take Trigger Brand Salvo, which is the main reason to go the way of the Trigger Brand. This is a single action that not only lets her make a melee strike and then a range strike with a combination weapon at the same multiple attack penalty, but gives her a +2 on that range attack roll as well. This also seems to match a few of the blows that she makes within the series. Now the show of RWBY seems to take some inspiration from anime, and Wall Jump as her skill feat feels both appropriate for that, as well as her general physicality. Yang takes Lifeblood's Call as her 13th level Ancestry feat, which increases her damage based on her wounded and doomed values. This is another solid way to represent the damage enhancing effects of her burn, and very importantly, stacks with the damage of her rage. This level skill increase goes to her Intimidation to make her a master in it. By taking Wounded Rage at 14th level, we can represent Yang gathering energy to unleash her burn when she gets hit, the impact igniting her semblance. For a skill feat, she picks up Battle Cry, thanks to her recent increase in Intimidation. This build doesn't take the Raging Intimidation class feat, meaning that she can't demoralize while raging. Therefore, this skill will let her get a demoralize out there before she even starts going into her rage. Yang lives dangerously by virtue of playing around with the wounded condition from her Orc Ferocity and leaving herself off guard with Come and Get Me. But she arms herself with Die Hard as her 15th level general feat, which makes it harder for her to die, if you couldn't tell by the name. Her skill increase will make her a legend in athletics, helping her better bully around beasties. Vengeful Strike is a very important feat for this concept, and one that is specifically tied to the Fury Instinct. This is going to let her immediately strike back at enemies that hit her, which I feel fits with the whole concept of her burn ability, letting her absorb a hit to deal one back. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. Her skill feat for this level is actually another reaction, one that she mainly uses if she does ever end up going down. Too Angry to Die lets her demoralize after standing up from being knocked unconscious, which would knock her out of her rage and thus make her able to demoralize again. The fun part of this is that it triggers from her standing up, which she can do as a free action thanks to Kip Up. For her final Ancestry feat, two options stand out to me. I personally like Rampaging Ferocity for Yang, with it giving her an opportunity to strike out and not burn the use of her Orc Ferocity if she downs the target. However, Incredible Ferocity is nice for it, giving Yang a guaranteed usage of Orc Ferocity at an hourly rate, which I could also understand. In either case, I would say follow your heart. I just like Rampaging better. For final skill increases, we'll be going to Intimidation and Acrobatics. There isn't a legendary acrobatic skill feat, so I increase the former first, while the latter will get its final improvement with her next skill increase. At 18th level, Yang has a lot of the tools that she already wants, but can get her hands on Knockback, an extra action that lets her send a foe flying backwards, which we've seen a couple of her blows do. Then she takes Cloud Jump, since she is a legend in athletics, and it's simply the most dynamic way to enter a fight. Coming in at 19th level is Fast Recovery, allowing Yang to recover from poisons and diseases even faster, while also just healing up quicker while resting. This is just a generally helpful tanky sort of feat, though it's coming in a little late. Since this build does admittedly endanger Yang quite considerably, the best feat at 20th level will be Unstoppable Juggernaut, which massively increases her survivability by virtue of granting her universal resistances. It does have an added benefit of having an effect similar to her Orc Ferocity, which means if she spends that but can't bring a foe low, she can further use this, putting her at wounded 3 to take advantage of her Lifeblood's Call, even if she loses out on her rage damage. As for her skill feat, I happen to notice that my favorite pick doesn't have the Concentrate tag, meaning that she's taking Scare to Death. It feels like it's been too long since I've had a chance to say that, and it's got me grinning already. Obviously, when it comes to a free archetype game, this build gets quite a bit of mileage out of that, with the options already seen here, and then probably spends further feats on reload type feats, such as Practice Reloads, or the always handing Running Reload. Further exploration as Sterling Dynamo could see her taking Piston Punch or Stacian Smash, and with the freed up feats, she can take options such as Wounded Rage sooner, along with the likes of Fast Movement, Renewed Vigor, and Awesome Blow. Some might say this build got a bit out of hand, so let's take a minute to review and get a grip on what we've put together. Yang Xiaolong is a battle-ready Orc Barbarian of the Fury Instinct, and a hunter background based on her training at Beacon Academy to be a Huntress of Grimm. She fights using a pair of shot gauntlets known as the Embers Delica, which in the most rudimentary sense are captured by her black powder knuckle dusters, but are further explored through a gunslinger dedication and trigger brand salvo. Iron Fist aids her tendency towards an unarmed combat style while she keeps her dexterity high, and has feats such as Kip Up to demonstrate the agility that complements her might. She demonstrates this might with feats such as Knockback, giving her the ability to send enemies flying, as well as Adrenaline Rush, giving her a benefit to force open the jaws of beasts trying to snack on her. As a barbarian, she naturally gets temporary hit points whenever she rages, and also acquires a few extra through Undying Ferocity, to demonstrate her ability to shield herself with her aura. She largely covers her burn semblance through Come and Get Me, allowing her to turn hits from enemies into an opportunity to strike back at them, which she further covers with the likes of Vengeful Strike and Rampaging Ferocity. Finally, the loss of her arm led to her getting a prosthetic replacement, which is explored, very briefly, through her Sterling Dynamo dedication, granting her a manual power driver attack. Bashing beasts and baddies with a bang, this boisterous blonde burns with blistering bravado, bearing beatings to bounce back with even bigger bursts of bruises. If you're so inclined, take a moment to check out a breakdown for the build over on the blog, which has more character sheets and items suggested for each level. That, along with the Monster Monday Twitter and Discord, are linked in the description below. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic Friday.
Guess who's back?